Hello there. You're listening to Shaft Dives You Crazy podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Shaft Dives You Crazy, where the currents are wild and stories go deep, and the people we meet are challenging the way we dive. Today's guest is Robin Philippo, a diver, educator, and conservationist who didn't just fall in love with the ocean, he decided to protect it, rebuild it, and live for it. Robin is the force behind TRACC, the Tropical Research and Conservation Center, a unique coral restoration and education hub on Pom Pom Island, Malaysia. What began as a bold conservation project is now a living, breathing underwater classroom and a haven for marine biodiversity. From training volunteers in coral science to navigating real threats like illegal spearfishing and even saltwater crocodiles, Robin's journey is anything but ordinary, and today we dive into it all. So, let's go. Welcome to the show, Robin.
Thank you very much, Shaf. Pleasure to be here.
So, how is it in Pom Pom Island, yeah?
Yeah, blue skies, flat oceans, and hot.
Aha, I wish I was there. Or back in the Maldives, not in Switzerland right now.
Yeah.
It's a weird weather pattern here. So, what pulled you towards the ocean?
It's actually ironically enough, I started diving and started to go more towards the ocean once I started to get quite a severe knee injury playing football. And not even being able to play any sports anymore at that stage, then we went diving in Egypt, and that's I kind of fell in love with the ocean.
Oh, okay. So, you played football while in school, or?
Yeah, just in high school, just amateur level, and just enjoyed it a lot. Wanted to do nothing but that. Had the disillusion of thinking to make it professional at one point, but of course that's just illusion, right?
Yeah.
I think every boy is trying to dream about that. So
Yeah, I used to play football when I was at school and later on as well a bit, but then I got a bit of an accident, fractured my arm. After that, I stopped playing, but I went on to play rugby after that.
okay, not as if that's less incident prone.
Funny thing is, I still do get scared of playing football.
Oh, really? Gotcha.
Yeah. So, back to diving. What was
Yeah.
your first dive like?
It was actually really cool. I went together with my best friend, and we went diving in Egypt. And the very first open water dive, we saw an eagle ray. So that was, absolutely mind blowing. And then I remember really well that the second dive, we didn't see an eagle ray or anything big. And I was like, oh, what's going on with this? Why didn't we see anything big? Just thinking straight away that that's the expectation that every diver should be seeing an eagle ray.
And after that, you got hooked on.
Yeah, yeah. It was very good for my knee, and it was very enjoyable as well. And if you look at these guys that are working on the boats and they're just every day just diving, and I was like, well, if you can turn into your hobby or your passion and you can turn it into your work, like what more would you want? So yeah, I absolutely got hooked on it.
Yeah, I think I know the feeling. What you
Yeah, you must recognize it.
mean. Yeah, long time ago. Yeah. So, what were you doing before you made made diving into your profession? Before track?
Um, Before TRACC, I was working as a dive master, but before that, I was working in telecommunications sales office in the Netherlands, working there as a manager for a couple of years, just doing all different types of sales and techniques and such right like that. Um, Very enjoyable, but it was also a good time to leave the Netherlands as well.
When was that? 8 or 9 years ago, or before that?
I can't really remember the very first time that I went. I think it was 2011. No, no, it must have been. Yeah, I started diving in 2011, I think, and in 2011 I also left for the first time on a long trip. And then really leaving the Netherlands must have been 2013, 14, something along those lines.
And what's the one lesson that diving has taught you, which nothing else could have?
It's a good question. To breathe. Like I'm a very hyperactive person, and when you go underwater, your mind just goes absolutely into like this Zen sort of mode, into like a meditative state. And I never thought that that would be possible. So it really has calmed me down a lot as a person, to be honest. So I don't think that else I would have, experienced that probably.
Yeah, diving makes me calm as well. I mean, that's one of the things that keeps my mind at ease.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something weird about this. It's just being in the water, being under the water, actually.
Yeah, it's particularly like, and you must recognize it as well. Like you might have experienced it in an extreme when you've gone for such a long time underwater. But for me, when I use my dive, like even if I want to think about things, I just can't. I just can't think about things. So for me, when I'm really busy the whole day, lots of things on my mind, and then when I just go underwater and I cannot think about anything. So for me, it's an absolute break. But when you did your 55 hours, you probably did the complete opposite, and all of your wildest thoughts came through probably at that point.
Yeah. But sometimes I do like think about stuff. Most of my crazy ideas come when I'm underwater.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
you actually had a dive, and you thought, you know what? Let's do this for 50 hours. Let's see how that is.
Well, yeah, it started. I mean, the idea became, I don't know. The idea was actually to do a 24-hour dive.
Ah,
And then,
that escalated.
yeah, that escalated. And now it's getting bigger and bigger. So let's
Yeah.
see where that takes. Hey, let's talk about track. Yeah, tell us what track is all about and how it started on Pom Pom Island.
Yeah. So TRACC is the Tropical Research and Conservation Center in Malaysian Borneo, specifically on Pom Pom Island. And it is a volunteer funded and volunteer organization where we host international people from all over the world to do coral restoration and artificial reef building. And it was initially founded in 2013 by Steve Oakley,
Okay.
who unfortunately passed away in 2016. And he was the brain behind TRACC and it as an organization. And that kind of led to the foundation of everything was already there. The work was already being done for a long time, and when I joined in 2017, we kind of just enhanced and went all in and really focused on doing more, if that makes sense. But I think the reason why it was founded, and I think that's probably the main reason, is that in Malaysia there's been a lot of historical blast fishing going on,
Yeah.
and unfortunately still is happening, but luckily not on Pom Pom Island. And you must recognize that as well from the Maldives, right? Pretty sure that they've been doing that there for generations as well.
No, in Maldives, there were never been dynamite fishing or blast fishing.
Oh, really? Because like in
Yeah.
India and Sri Lanka, there's been definitely significant reports. That's interesting that it's not in the Maldives then. That's good, I suppose.
Because the government doesn't allow explosives to be used by civilian.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, good thing.
Well, here's the same thing, but here they create makeshift bombs. So they're handcrafted bombs. It's not like actual grenades or military weapons, so to speak. It is really like homemade explosives
Hmm.
that they use, and the damage, unfortunately, that it does is so significant that unfortunately, in Pom Pom, as an island, which is for people that don't know, it's about 2.3 kilometers circumference. It's got a fringing reef of around about 4 kilometers. And back in 2011, when they started to do the surveys on Pom Pom, it's really just death and decay. It's been completely decimated, completely flattened, so to speak, by this, this horrible practice that has been taking place for decades.
Is the vision the same as it is when you arrived? And what does it look like today for TRACC?
It's definitely changed. Yeah, it's definitely changed. So I remember really well when I went diving in 2015 here when I first arrived on the island. And before I started with the position, they told me like, okay, you know, uh, two things that you need to know: we don't have fish, and we don't have coral. And you might recognize it no matter where you go. It's always in comparison to your last place. So if you were to go to Raja Ampat and then you go to Bali, you might say, oh yeah, there's not in compare, not really much fish or not much coral. But then if you go to another place like Koh Tao or something, and then you would compare that to Bali, you might also say that there is no coral, no fish in compare. So I've heard that a lot during my diving, but I remember going diving here for the first time. It was mind blowing. Like really, no coral and no fish. It's just death zone. So that looks horrendous, and most of the island still looks exactly the same, where there has not been any restoration going on because the island doesn't show any natural recovery
Why is that?
because of the sloping reefs that we have here. So
Okay.
I think to explain it very briefly is so when you have a fringing reef, so basically a sloping reef, what happens if there's the blast fishing that has been happening a lot on the around the reef crest, so to speak. When that intensity of the blast fishing happens over and over and over again, the complete substrate or the ground is just being destroyed. So all of the limestone of the island itself is just being blasted to oblivion,
Okay.
and it leaves nothing but dead coral behind. So there's all of this dead coral eventually starts to die or dies already, and that then becomes rubble. Rubble is basically dead coral that is anywhere between 2 centimeters up to 15 centimeters, and it is just dead. And if you then have layers and layers and layers upon of each other,
Hmm.
that then does not show any, it doesn't have a stable substrate for the coral to grow on. And then when it's on a slope, and then, on Pom Pom, it's anywhere from 10, 15 degrees all the way up to about 45, 50 degrees slopes. So that's very steep slopes. And then it just doesn't show any sign of recovery in that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, or also?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so that's kind of the issue that we are really facing here on the island.
Okay. So TRACC is more into restoring these sloping reefs as well, right?
Yeah, it's interestingly enough, it's really one of our big focus areas because worldwide there's a lot of restoration efforts that are being taken place. And the one thing that is unfortunately not very much focused on is on sloping reefs that are more than 15-degree slopes. And the issue that we see with that, during my whole time when I've been doing my coral restoration efforts here, there's two things that we're always being told is like if it's below 10 meters, it's not ideal. You prefer to go a bit more shallow in that sense. So better to not do it. And secondly, if it's more than 15-degree slope, don't even attempt it. So but that means that if, out of the 600,000 square kilometers of reef worldwide, about 20% or something, 25%, I don't know the exact number, is fringing reefs that all have a slope more than 15 degrees or 15 degrees or more. So it means that we are ignoring a massive amount of reef that is also under threat. And if that is not being looked at, we might not get a solution for that.
This sets TRACC apart from other reef restoration projects in Southeast Asia, I guess. So you guys are more focused on the sloping reefs rather than flat, shallow lagoons.
Yeah, so I wish that we would have flat shallow lagoons. That would be ideal. Would make restoration a whole lot easier than what it is right now. Um, but there's definitely other guys that are out there that are trying to do restoration on slopes. But there's a very limited amount of success that is being shared. So, for example, if you were to go into the scientific literature and you try to find a paper on coral restoration that's done on, for example, a 20-degree slope or a 25-degree slope, it's not really there. It doesn't really exist. And I don't say that we are the only ones that are doing it, but I think what we are trying to focus on is try to see, islands like Pom Pom, there's many of them. And especially in Southeast Asia, with blast fishing being such a historical thing from many parts of the past, but in some countries still actively the present and potentially even the future. So reefs like TRACC might still come, into different areas as well. So we're trying to anticipate this, so to speak.
And you are 3D printing reefs, right?
Yes and no.
What do you mean? Yes and no.
Okay, so yes, in a way we call it basically reverse engineered 3D printed reefs.
Okay.
And I know that that's confusing, but the idea behind it is traditionally when you look at 3D printing, particularly for reefs, it means that there's from either cement or from ceramic or from clay, that there's these reefs that are being printed by a 3D printer. That takes, of course, a lot of time, energy, resources, etc. And that is something that is not really something that is available for island communities like ourselves. So what we have done, or I say we, but it's basically Reef Design Lab by Alex and Zach, who are the guys that have engineered and designed this particular module, the Mars 2, is that we turn it around. So instead of that, we print everything and then we ship it to site. We are now 3D printing
Okay.
a mold, and then we are able to make 3D printed reefs. So basically the same as that it would come out of a printer, but we make them on site on small island communities like Pom Pom. Hence the name reverse engineering. Instead of that, we 3D print the unit, we 3D print a mold so that we eventually are able to, get the same high-end technology without having a printer inside.
Okay. That's interesting. How much of those have you now like laid down on the reefs?
So in total, we have deployed at the moment one larger, like we've got three different categories of structures, so to speak. So we've done one large structure, six medium structures, and 17 small structures. And now we have still readily available another three large structures and four medium structures that will be deployed very soon as well.
So it'll only be around Pom Pom Island, or you're gonna go to different places in Malaysia?
Well, the idea is that it would hopefully be implemented in other places that have sloping reef problems and don't have any option to do any core restoration because of the slope or instability of the substrate. So ideally, we would go and expand to different locations and such. But we first need to make sure that we can quantify what we are doing, right? And
Hmm.
that we make sure that this is working and we've got the science and the data to prove that this is a successful method or not. Because else we're just going to go to the eternal phase of that we do a mass implementation of something and then you figure out, oh, this is actually not the solution. So we want to make sure that we've got a good basis behind it as to why we are doing it. And then hopefully we would be able to go to different places. Yeah.
Okay. So you even take volunteers at your at Trek, right? So how does that work in rebuilding coral reefs? How do you train volunteers?
Yeah. So the ease for it, so we take volunteers, so anyone who's above 18 years old. The oldest volunteer that we have currently 77. So we have really people from all different ages that come by. And the only thing that we need from people is to just show that they have the willingness to want to come and participate and help. And once they are here on the island, we can train them every single step of the way, whether that is the manufacturing of the reefs, which is mixing cement and pouring it inside of the mold, or whether it's the deploying with lift bags, having the lift bag training with it, or it is the planting that comes with it. So we plant corals, fragmentations onto the structures. Basically, all of the work that we do, we need volunteers. So we get now yearly around about 200-ish volunteers a year that come and help us with this. So that's kind of the easy way that we have people that come and help us to do this work.
How long do they stay?
The minimum of time that they come for is 2 weeks, and then it goes all the way up to 4 months. So, and then some people, even after 4 months, they still extend because they don't want to leave.
Yeah, okay. And do you incorporate other dive courses into that as well?
Yeah. So we train basically everything from open water all the way to dive master at the project. And
Okay.
we don't really do any coral restoration training or artificial reef building training. We just have for everything that we do. If people come as a volunteer, we train them everything that we know. So it's not as if there's any additional courses that need to be done on coral planting or such like that. We just do the simple training while on the project. And most of the time, because we use citizen science, it is as easy as just having an extended briefing of around about an hour or have a presentation of an hour, hour and a half. And then we would be able to show people already straight away on how they can participate in the work that we do.
Okay. And what's the coral school concept you have? That's blending diving with marine sciences, and also you have a A-level course, right, on marine science?
Yeah, yeah, correct. Yeah, so we run a Cambridge Marine Science A level, which is the course basically for A level, which is AS in A level. For people from the UK, that is a system for when you're like 17, 18 as pre-university.
Yeah.
And it normally takes 2 years and you do like 4 or 5 subjects at a time. And what we have done is we basically extracted that and we are doing instead of multiple units, we just do only marine science. And we do it instead of over a time frame of 2 years, we do it over a time frame of 4 months, including all of the examinations and such.
Okay.
And it's a great way for people to live on an island and to learn everything about marine science, whether it's for pre-university. Some people do it as a sabbatical, or other people doing it as a dive master or instructor wanting to learn more about the ocean and basically their office where they work, so to speak.
That's actually really cool thing to get done in the Maldives, I guess, because Maldives also follows the same system as in the UK. I mean, Cambridge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it takes 2 years to finish the advanced level
Hmm.
thing. So, yeah, and marine science is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of students do that, but I think it should be something that needs to be really into that. No,
Yeah. Particularly in the Maldives, being surrounded by nothing but water.
exactly. And what are the biggest misconceptions people have about reef recovery?
I think one of the main misconceptions that I hear often is that people think that they have to be a scientist to do such. So that they need to be trained educators, going to university, etc. And I'm not discrediting that at all. Like, I think it's fantastic and we need more scientists. Like, we need a lot of scientists in order to combat what we have ahead of us. Uh, but the idea of like planting coral or coral reef restoration can actually be done under the supervision of scientists. But the people labor, so to speak, that can be done by anyone. And I think that's one of the main misconceptions that's happening, that people do not really know that they can participate in something like that as well. I think that's one of the biggest ones, probably.
Okay. I've had a lot of my dive students ask me for advice to become marine scientists and all that as well. And yeah, I even tell them sometimes you don't need to be a scientist to be part of a coral reef project unless you really want to go into the university and study that. Anybody can do it, like you said.
Yeah, and we definitely still. We definitely still need people like that that go into university and that really get all of the knowledge that they can get, and then hopefully they go out back into the field or go into the policy making behind of it, or the legislations behind of it. Like, we absolutely need these people. But I think that we still have the opportunity for people that don't come from such an education, or maybe they've studied something different, that
Yeah.
they are aware that they still can do something for the ocean and participate in projects like TRACC, or whether it's a reef check, which is like a citizen science kind of data collection, or whether it's in any other project that there is where there is restoration going on. People can help without having that formal education behind it.
Yeah, and not all are these academically minded people, right? A lot are into the physical side and also doing other work regarding these things.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think that if you really want, you can absolutely contribute. Like, that's 100% something that can be done no matter what your background or education is, so to speak. If you can dive, you can do something.
Yeah. And how do you measure success biologically and socially?
I think socially it's interesting that you mentioned that, because socially how track functions, like, let's be honest, right? Like, we are only a drop in the ocean. We're having a small island, small reef. Even if we were to completely recover this reef, then still it is not going to make a huge dent into what we are facing worldwide today. But I think what I measure as a success is all of these volunteers that come through here every single day, and we get quite a few of them a year. They kind of get this beacon of hope that they see, just like, wow, even if the outlook is very bleak, there are still people worldwide that are trying something and doing something. I think that's the main social aspect of measuring of success that we see for the volunteer side of things. That they go out there and, some of them have started their own projects, others have started to, did a complete career change. Some of them are now, following PhDs simply because they volunteered at TRACC, so to speak. So we create stewards for the ocean that go out there and be their guardians, so to speak. I think that's from the social aspect of the volunteers, and then of course we have the social aspect of the local community here. Um, Unfortunately, with COVID, we've had a massive, because we're a volunteer funded organization. Like so many during COVID, if all of a sudden you have to close your doors for 2 years, there's no income, right? So that makes it a bit tricky. Um, so we have not really been able to do as much community work or community engagement as we wish. And that is now the year 2025 and 2026, is that we are really going to go a lot more full on into the action of trying to help the local community, particularly the island of One here, bring them back wealth, to make them stewards of their own oceans, and for them to have a successful future for the generations to come, if that makes sense.
And biologically, what's the success?
So if I would see it with my own eyes, this is the unfortunate thing. When Steve passed away, also a lot of the data that was collected during that time, so the early years of track kind of went with him to the grave, so to speak. But what I've seen with my own eyes since 2015, it's quite remarkable. So when I first arrived, there was the biggest grouper that we would see, for example, is just a simple coral grouper that's about 10, 15 centimeters max. And that was about it when you talk about predators. Where now, at some parts of the island, we've got groupers that are like easily a meter and a half. When you face it on the water, it's like, oh, damn. Like, I get excited for it, but we have some of our relatively newer volunteers there is like, oh, wow, that's a big fish. Yeah. So to see the abundance and the life that comes back is insane. And then particularly on House Reef, which you now call downstairs, where we have worked since 2012, 2013, the change there, like, chef, you would not believe it. Like, what has just been obliterated and completely nothingness, and there are fisheries there, and just to see the change. Like and that's in 10 years, right? Like it's been 10 years since I've been on this island. To see that kind of change with my own eyes is just absolutely remarkable. I did not expect this in my lifetime, let alone 10 years. But that's of course a visual, right? Like you can't really put that into a measurable data. Like that's just like my visual experience. So we are currently doing a lot of research based on like the fish population that we have, the density of like the predators that we have, the coral coverage that we have on the island, and then there's the historical data that comes from Reef Check that is every year being done by Reef Check to see the status of pom pom. So these are a couple of the things that we have, and then we have a lot of other research that's currently being done about the planting, the biodiversity, the abundance. So that will all be resulting into reports that will really measurably state the improvement of Pom Pom as an island. But anyone who's been here also as a volunteer, and they would come back because we do get a lot of volunteers that come back. Generally speaking, they are mind blown about the change that is happening.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
And also interesting about the slow growth of the reef and the fish life. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's improving.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a positive point. How do you deal with the challenges of running education programs on a remote island as Pom Pom?
A lot of hair pulling. I think that's probably the main. No, it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, but I've got a fantastic team around me and fantastic team that are helping with everything that we do. But it definitely comes with challenges. Being 10 years on this island, it's a very small island. I don't think that you can put it in perspective. 2.3 kilometers circumference is about a 40-minute walk. There's no roads here. There's nothing but sand, and it's amazing. It's great. But it does come with a lot of different challenges as well. It's like fresh water, whether it's internet or electricity or boats. Yeah, like I said, hair pulling kind of events.
Ever had a moment where you thought like, will this work or something like that?
No, I really believe I really believe that what we are doing is absolutely we're doing the right thing. If I would have thought just like, oh, this is not worth it, I would have quit probably years ago. I so wholeheartedly believe that what we are doing here right now is worth every second of it. No matter if you're living with the volunteers, with the staff, with your colleagues, with our local staff. Everyone lives together on a very, very small place. Comes with challenges, but still, at the end of the day, it's worth it. So the thought of quitting with it, yes, of course, it passes your mind. But I think at the end of the day, if we're not going to do it, then who is, right?
Yeah, exactly. And okay, let's talk about the spearfishing dangers. How often do illegal fishermen threaten your reef zone?
It's not a very common thing that we have here in Sabah, or at least not on Pomp. Like I think you're referring to the incident that we had here. I think it was last year. Yeah, that was a bit of a maybe not so smart kind of ID going after spearfishers with a camera while scuba. Um, but you live and you learn, so to speak. But like we
Yeah.
we don't have as many issues here. But I think what for me the main issue was during that particular incident is that we have got volunteers here every single day on our house reef diving over and over again. And at that time, we had 3 spearfishermen on scuba with all different types of groupers onto their spears. And it's just, it is, unless they have a license for it, it's not allowed to spearfish on scuba or it's not allowed to have a spear gun. And it's also a bit frowned upon, right? Like, I think many, many spearfishers would probably that actually do spearfishing probably would see it as well. It's like it takes away a bit of the charm of the sport. But like in other parts of Malaysia, like I know in the northern part of Kota Kinabalu, they have quite a lot of issues of people that are scuba diving while spearfishing, and it's just dangerous, right? Because let's say if someone accidentally pulls the trigger, like that's a recipe for disasters. And I think what happens is that they take away that top layer of the ecosystem, so that the predators, like the big groupers and such, that they take away, and they're so vital and so important for the ecosystem. So I think that that's the biggest thing that is frustrating, that you see these populations come back, and just to see someone just come by and just shoot whatever they have on Scuba, it's kind of disheartening at times, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a few spear fishermen using scuba in the Maldives, and especially seeing it while diving from a liveaboard. And another liveaboard had this big group of spear fishermen on scuba, which was insane to see. I really got pissed off.
Yeah. Yeah, it is just such a, for me, I don't really understand this. But hey, I'm also, like, I'm vegetarian, I don't eat fish. So I also don't really understand that part. Maybe if I would be a massive lover of fish, like to eat, maybe then I would understand it. But yeah, my head, I just can't really wrap my head around it.
I mean, I used to spearfish, but it was all in the blue, not in the not on reefs. And for me, what I saw that day, it was on a protected dive site.
Mm,
If you're spearfishing, just go to a reef or in the blue where there are no divers, or and don't do it on scuba.
yeah.
Free dive and do it.
Yeah. And I think
That's how the sport is. No?
Yeah, I think that's right. And like some of my friends that do spearfishing and stuff, and I think it's such a good selective way of fishing, right? If you compare it to some of the other methods that there,
Yeah.
it's actually quite a sustainable way. But just on scuba, that part I just can't really wrap my head around.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, it's selective. No, you shoot what you want to eat or what you see,
Yeah,
not just wait for a while and then see what bites on your hook.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then before you know it, you might have a shark or anything like that, right? Like,
Yeah. There were reports of saltwater crocodiles in that area, right? Near Pom Pom. How did that come?
well, saltwater crocodiles is a big thing. We had one saltwater crocodile that was around about 4 foot, like 1 meter, 1 meter 20 or something like that. It's very small. But yeah, we did have a saltwater crocodile here, which was quite unique because in the 10 years that I've been here, I've never seen a crocodile here. And that was interesting. It was definitely like an island happening that I think many of the people here on the island will still talk about for quite a few years.
Yeah. You know what? There have been crocodile sightings in the Maldives increasing actually in the past couple of years.
Oh.
Even 2 months ago, I saw a video on Instagram by a friend of mine where the salty was resting on these reef breaks
Oh, yeah.
on a resort down south.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if they caught it or.
But are they large salties or?
Yeah, you get we've had sightings of really large salties as well, and but generally they are the smaller ones.
Yeah, I gotcha. I suppose, I think the whole world is changing right now, so I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of these ecosystems also get, weird sightings and such, or weird habitats that they move into. Mm.
And do you work with the Malaysian authorities or with the government?
Not as much as we like. Like, we have a very good relationship together with the Sabah Wildlife Department, because of the turtle hatchery management that we do here, because we've got a nesting population of turtles on Pom Pom. So we work very closely with those guys. But outside of that, I wish that we would work more close with Malaysian authorities for sure.
Do they support it?
Yeah, I suppose they support it. It is not, I think, as in some other countries. But I think that they definitely do support. They see that the work that we are doing is worthwhile, and they see that there's the effects that come from it, or the positive benefits from it. Not as much outside of that. I think that there is support. I wish that there would be more interaction, because then we could also get to more support. But I think that conversation needs to be had in order to move that forward.
And TRACC works close to the Bajau sea nomads, right? Did I pronounce it right?
Yeah, it's the Bajalaut. Yeah, the sea gypsies, the sea nomads.
How did you build that relationship with them?
So we have got about 5 kilometers from here. I'm looking at it right now as I speak. Is an island called Kalapuan, and that is an island that has got population of around about 250 families, 200 to 250 families. Families can be very broad, so it would be a population of anywhere between like 1,000 to 1,500, and most of them are stateless. So, are you familiar with that? With the
Yeah,
statelessness of the?
yeah, yeah. I've read about it.
Yeah. So, for maybe people that are not aware of it, it's basically that the generations of the sea gypsies, because they used to live in the boats, and they would travel from place to place on their boats. And because we as Western society have decided what a border is, or a land border, so to speak, that also includes islands. But people that live on the ocean and just travel from island to island are not really seen in the same kind of perspective. So unfortunately, we have a lot of undocumented Malaysians, sea gypsies, that live here in the area because we're so close to the Philippines and so close to Indonesia. And many of them are on Kelapuan Island. And we have a lot of our staff that is from Kelapuan Island. So the people that we have with us are also the people that are coming from, fishing, and some of them even from blast fishing histories. That's just what they used to do in the past. So we built this relationship with them by having the education that comes into play, and because we help them with a lot of the work that we are doing around here, and try to include them as much as possible. And they're lovely guys. I absolutely love the whole population that's there. They're amazing people.
And what do the Bajau play in the marine ecosystem today, or in TRACC's future?
What role they play in me?
Yeah, in the marine ecosystem today, near where you are.
It's actually interesting. So there's a project that I've proposed, and it's a project that I'm hoping that the funding will come through to it. It is, that I want to include the local community into the building of the artificial reefs that we make, and them deploying these as well, and then helping with the planting and such after that. So basically, the idea is now is because the stateless people, they're not recognized by government, right? So they don't have any right for education. They don't have any right for employment or for healthcare. So the only source of income that they have is fishing, and that is their method. And then, blast fishing is unfortunately a quick catch by having a self-made detonated bomb that goes off, where it can yield up to 45 kilos of fish, and compared to, hook and line that you might sit for days on end to even try to get an amount close to that. What I'm really trying to look for is to create an alternative livelihood for them, so that we can have the 3D printed reefs that need to be built. And then instead of that, they are going out fishing, is that we are able to pay them to make these artificial reefs. So for every unit that they create, they get a monetary value for it, which they then can use to boost up their own economy, so to speak, because then they can buy fish from someone else. So that's kind of how I try to create an alternative income source for them, if that makes sense. And I think that they play a vital part into the future, particularly if we see the work that's being done by Asmin from Reef Malaysia and Green Samporna. He is creating these local community groups that are becoming their own stewards and helping with the making of artificial reefs, the deploying of the artificial reefs. The stewards are trying to make sure that there is the patrolling for the blast fishing that's happening and such. So I think that that's like a really good way that we should include the community, but we need to be able to give them an alternative source of income, because else no one will do this voluntary, right?
Yeah, nobody will.
Yeah.
That's the thing with running a conservation center, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, you really don't get that amount of finance you want it to succeed well,
Unfortunately.
and also to pay the people who are volunteering or supporting it.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, if I would be able to pay the staff that works here what they're worth, because they're worth so much more as what they earn now. But like you said, it's a volunteer funded organization. We're now in the process of actually getting um, our Dutch charity established so that we are able to take donations and such, which will hopefully make a huge change. But still, there's like track. There's so many different projects worldwide that are just self-supported or running on shoestring budgets. And it would be great if there's so much more finance that would be able to come available for projects like TRACC that really put in the groundwork and do as much as possible. It would be fantastic. But then we're living in a idealistic world, right?
Yeah. What do you want Trek to become in the next 5 years? What do you see Trek in the next 5 years?
I would really see TRACC to step up a lot more into the sense of the data and the research that's coming out because we're collecting a lot of data. Like we do literally every day. We have 20 to 30 volunteers that are doing 2 dives a day, collecting data or planting or whatsoever, or doing research. And I want that data to get out there. So I want to have a lot more publications to come out there to highlight and show the work that we are doing as an organization. And secondly, I really want to, within 5 years, then hopefully we would be able to have potentially a second location. But more importantly, I want to have first our turtle rehabilitation center established here on Pom Pom. That's like one of the top priorities that we have here to protect, the turtle species that we have around here, the hawksbill and the greens that are, all worldwide under a vulnerable status as well. So that would be like the 5 year plan, so to speak.
And to the people who are listening to this and who want to help, what's the best way they can support Trek?
At the moment, we cannot take any monetary value. So if people want to support us and they cannot come and volunteer, or let's say, let's start with the volunteer. If someone wants to come and volunteer, you don't have to be a diver. We can teach you how to dive. You don't have to worry about having to be a marine biologist or a scientist. Like the things that we do here, we can train someone within a day how to do the work that we are doing. So people can come over and volunteer in Malaysia. That would be like the best step that we have. And that can be done through the website track.org, tracc.org. And there you can find all the information. And if people cannot make it, which makes sense to come over to Malaysia, soon we will be able to receive donations through the Dutch charity. And else, like always, follow our Instagram, our Facebook. Well, we even have a TikTok account now, which is a new thing. But so even our TikTok account and just share the news, share the message of conservation, and not only for Trek, right? Like the best way to help other projects as well is to share and highlight the work that they are doing, so that with that exposure, hopefully they can get more limelight to get funding or get projects done or to make significant change.
And you're going to be at the Malaysia Dive Expo, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, I will be there as well.
So people can drop by to your booth and have a talk and get all the information as well, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be hosting a panel on sustainability, the consumer choice of driving sustainability choices in the dive industry. And then secondly, I'll be doing a presentation about the reverse engineered 3D printed reefs and to restore or how we are restoring Pom Pom Island by the usage of these 3D futuristic structures.
What's the funniest or weirdest moment running a remote restoration project? The crocodile or the
Uh,
spearfish? I mean, you have loads of stories, I guess.
Oh yeah, I would have lots of stories. I think one of the weirdest is yeah that jumps to my mind. To give you an idea, we are 35 kilometers offshore, and this is a couple of years back in 2018, 2019 or something. And the island is very tiny, right? So everything that's on this island, probably every inch of this island, I would have seen, every animal I would have recognized by now. And then at one point, I'm sitting at the front, and of course, you have your off time. So I'm sitting at the front and I'm having a beer. And all of a sudden, I get a call from my science officer, G. And he's like, "You have to come to the back." And I was like, "Why do I have to come to the back?" He's like, "No, honestly, you have to come to the back." And I was like, "Hey, I'm having a beer. I'm not going to come to the back." He's like, "No, you really have to come to the back." And I was like, "Well, this better be worth it." And then as I walk back, he's like, "Oh yeah, there's a penguin." And I was like, "What are you saying, a penguin?" And he's like, "No, no, no, a pangolin." And I was like, "A pangolin, pangolin, penguin, either. It doesn't matter, make a difference. That cannot be here. Like, what are you talking about?" And then we walk back to my room. And yeah, in a sheet, there's this massive pangolin. It's about 15, 20 kilos on Pom Pom Island.
How how did that get there?
That was my next question. How did it get there? And then the second part, what am I supposed to do with this?
It's a protected animal, right? Endangered, especially.
Yeah, and it's the most trafficked animal worldwide, pangolin, for its skills. So it makes no sense for that to be on Pom Pom. And how it got there, there's some rumors going around, but I can't really talk about that too much. But what
Yeah.
what the idea is okay, so we have the wildlife department that says, okay, can you bring it out tomorrow? But it meant that we had to keep it overnight. One thing that people did not tell me is that pangolins can skunk.
Uh-huh.
So we had this pangolin in the room and it just absolutely stunk like crazy the whole night. And the whole night it's just scratching and trying to escape. And it was just like, what the hell is going on? So yeah, that's probably like the weirdest story that I can really quickly remember that just makes no sense still to this day.
That's really funny. What's the one thing that every volunteer or some volunteers say by the end of their trek experience?
I don't want to leave.
That's the most common one, yeah.
That's honestly, yeah, it's very common. Yeah. So I think what happens with trek is that the beauty of it is that these people are coming together. And like I said, all different ages, ethnicities, backgrounds, whatsoever.
Yeah.
But they all come here with the same goal and they all come here with the same idea. They care about the ocean, they care about conservation, they're willing to put their time into this. And that's important to them. So they find this little community on this island that is doing this. So it really resembles for a lot of people like finding a community that they don't really wish to leave.
Yeah, I bet. Hey, Robin, thank you so much for being on this episode. Yeah.
Thank you, Chef. It's been an honor.
And to the listeners, TRACC isn't just a marine conservation center, it's a movement. And Robin is out there with his team making sure coral culture and community all get a second chance. So if you want to learn more about TRACC, just go to their website, track.org, or their Instagram page or TikTok, as Robin said, and find out how you can volunteer, donate, or just share the story.
Yes.
All right.
Fantastic.
And stay salty, stay wild, don't meet a saltwater crocodile.
Yeah, I'll try and do that.
Thank you for listening. And thank you again, Robin.
Thank you, brother. Been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.